There's a moment most mornings, right before the world fully wakes up, when the room is quiet enough to hear your own breathing, not calm breathing. The kind that feels shallow, rushed, like your body already knows something your mind hasn't admitted yet. He lies there staring at the ceiling, phone resting on his chest, screen glowing softly in the dark. Notifications stacked like unopened letters. Messages he hasn't replied to, news headlines he didn't ask for. 1,000 tiny demands waiting for him before his feet even touch the floor. His name is Daniel. And if you saw him later that day walking into work, nodding politely, joking with coworkers, you would never guess that this is how his mornings begin. You would never know that before the coffee, before the commute, before the performance of being fine. His mind is already tired. The phone vibrates just once. That's all it takes. Daniel unlocks it without thinking. Thumb scrolling, eyes half open, brain already slipping into that familiar current. A video here, a post there, someone's vacation, someone's promotion, someone's perfectly edited breakfast. He tells himself it's just a few minutes. It's always just a few minutes. But time stretches strangely in this space. 5 minutes becomes 20, 20 becomes an hour. And when he finally puts the phone down, something feels off. Not guilty, not anxious exactly. Just drained, like he's already spent energy he hasn't earned yet. This is how his days begin. And somehow how they end too. Daniel doesn't remember when life started feeling like this, fragmented, noisy, heavy in ways he can't quite explain. He just knows that his attention feels thinner than it used to. He sits at his desk, opens his laptop, starts a task, then switches tabs, checks email, checks messages, checks nothing in particular. His mind jumps before he tells it to. Thoughts flicker and disappear like channels changing too fast to follow. At night, when he finally stops moving, the thoughts arrive all at once. Regrets, conversations replayed, futures imagined and feared. The mind, quiet all day, suddenly loud when he wants rest. He wonders why he feels exhausted, even on days when he hasn't done anything physically demanding. Why motivation feels like something he used to have, not something he can access anymore. No one ever taught him that exhaustion doesn't always come from doing too much. Sometimes it comes from being pulled in too many directions at once. Daniel starts to notice patterns. How he reaches for his phone whenever there's even a second of silence. Waiting for coffee, standing in an elevator, sitting at a red light. Silence feels uncomfortable now, like an itch he has to scratch. He didn't choose this habit consciously. It formed quietly over years, reinforced by tiny rewards. A like, a message, something new. What he doesn't realize yet is that his mind has been living in a constant state of stimulation. Not excitement, stimulation, a low-level buzz that never turns off. Like a radio playing in the background of every thought. One evening, after another day of feeling strangely empty, Daniel does something uncharacteristic. He turns his phone off, not silent. Not face down, off. The room feels different immediately. Too quiet. Almost uncomfortable. He paces, sits, stands again. His mind reaches for something that isn't there. That night, sleep comes slowly. His thoughts feel louder without the usual distractions to drown them out. But something else happens too. In the spaces between thoughts, memories surface. Ideas. Questions he hasn't asked himself in years. What do I actually want? When was the last time I felt focused? When was the last time I felt present? The next morning he limits his phone use again, not as a rule. More like an experiment. He doesn't announce it, doesn't make it a goal. He just notices. The first few days are hard. His mind feels restless, like it's missing something essential. Boredom creeps in, not the peaceful kind, but the edgy kind. The kind that makes you want to escape. Daniel learns something surprising in those moments. Boredom isn't emptiness. It's transition. It's the mind recalibrating after years of being fed constant input. After about a week, something shifts. He's sitting at work, reading a report, when he realizes he's been focused for several minutes without checking anything else. The thought surprises him. Not because it's extraordinary, but because it feels unfamiliar. Later that day, while walking home without headphones, an idea surfaces. Not forced. Not planned. Just there. A solution to a problem he'd been stuck on. A thought about the future that feels clear instead of overwhelming. Daniel begins to understand something. Not intellectually, but viscerally. His mind hasn't been broken. It's been overstimulated. The human brain is not designed to process endless novelty without rest. It craves meaning, not noise. When stimulation is constant, attention fractures. Focus doesn't disappear, it gets drowned out. And when focus fades, everything feels harder: work, relationships, even rest. Daniel starts paying attention to when his mind feels calmest. It's not during productivity sprints or motivational bursts. It's during simple moments. Washing dishes, sitting by a window, walking without a destination. In those moments, his thoughts wander, but not chaotically. They drift, connect, organize themselves quietly in the background. He realizes that some of his best thinking doesn't happen when he's trying to think. Halfway through this quiet experiment, Daniel has a moment that changes how he sees himself. He's sitting alone one evening, doing nothing in particular, when a familiar anxious thought appears. Normally, he would push it away or distract himself. This time he doesn't. He watches it, just observes it rise and fall. And for the first time, he notices something subtle. The thought is loud, but it isn't permanent. It doesn't define him. It's an event, not an identity. That realization doesn't solve everything. It doesn't erase anxiety or magically restore motivation. But it creates space. Space between Daniel and his thoughts. Space where choice can exist. He begins to speak to himself differently. Not with harsh criticism, but with curiosity. Why does this thought keep coming back? What is it protecting me from? When did I start believing this about myself? This is where self-compassion enters, quietly. Not as indulgence, as understanding. Daniel stops treating his mind like an enemy that needs to be controlled and starts treating it like a system that needs care. He changes nothing dramatically. No extreme routines, no overnight transformations, just small shifts. He leaves his phone in another room while working. He lets himself sit with boredom instead of escaping it. He allows his mind to wander without guilt. Over time, the noise lowers. Focus becomes less forced. Motivation feels less like pressure and more like alignment. He doesn't do more. He does less with more presence. And in that presence, life feels fuller, colors sharper, conversations deeper. Even silence feels useful. Daniel still struggles. Some days are heavy. Some nights his thoughts return, but now he recognizes the pattern. He knows that overwhelm often means overstimulation, not failure. He knows that rest is not weakness. That attention is not something to squeeze harder, but something to protect. He understands now that the state of his attention shapes the state of his life. When attention is scattered, life feels chaotic. When attention is calm, life feels navigable. Not easy, and maybe that's the quiet truth we don't hear often enough. You don't need to become someone new to feel better. You don't need to fix everything at once. Sometimes the most powerful change is simply making space. Space for thought. Space for boredom. Space for yourself. Daniel's life doesn't suddenly become perfect. But it becomes clearer. And clarity is powerful. Clarity gives you back agency. It reminds you that your mind is not a machine to be optimized endlessly, but a living system that needs rhythm, rest, and respect. As he lies in bed now, the phone no longer glowing on his chest, the room feels quieter. Not empty, calm. His breathing slows. Thoughts still come, but they don't overwhelm him. He lets them pass like clouds instead of chasing each one. If any part of this story felt familiar, if you felt stretched thin, overstimulated, quietly exhausted, know this. You're not broken, you're human. And your mind is capable of more calm, more focus, more creativity than you've been led to believe. Here at this channel, we explore these quiet stories of the human mind, not to fix you, but to help you understand yourself better. If you want more reflections like this, stories that help you slow down, reconnect, and grow, consider subscribing. Because the way you pay attention to your mind shapes the way you experience your life. And sometimes the most meaningful progress begins in silence. Thanks for watching.